Evening, we are coming to you with another episode of the podcast. What are we up to? I think we're like scaling somewhere up around the 200 and... oh my gosh, it's like 230. This is to episode 213. So with this Rise series, we've certainly accelerated the level of which we're bringing this value to you. I've just checked our podcast charts and it seems we've cracked the top 50 in Switzerland, of all places. So I'm going to keep chucking out the value and hopefully this will be exactly that. So good morning, guys. How are you? Look at the crew coming in here, the legends. Now, this is going to be a podcast that, look, I think this is probably my favorite one. The reason is inside of this podcast, I'm going to give you what I think is probably the most important thing to have if you want to change your life. Okay, I'm just going to put it that. And I feel like I've maybe said that a couple of times, but this isn't specifically deep on... it's a hard thing to describe. Okay, so rather than try to prefix it, I'll just get into the podcast very shortly. So 2 minutes, guys, we're going to rock and roll and get started. Now, who we got in here? So Tezza, good morning, my legend. Morning, coach. I've just got to say, Sean, I love the new profile photo, mate. You are looking sharp as a bloody tack. Gosh, you look good, bro. That new shirt, you're looking bloody fantastic, mate. So well done. Who else we got in here? Guys, if you haven't already, say hi in the comments. I want to know if you're in here getting this value. This helps me to... You know why this is important for me? To understand who's watching is because I want to connect the guys that are getting... When I say guys, I mean guys and girls that are getting constant results with the ones that are coming in and doing the work. Does that make sense? So if you're coming in, let me know, guys. We're going to get started in 1 more minute. Kenny's in here with Hayes. How are you, guys? JC Williams becoming super consistent. You can see my daughter playing around in the background. She's playing hide and seek with a rat here, which is fun for her. Toddy, good morning, mate. How are you? Nikki Friend's in here as well. Joe, Marples. Ooh, loving the hair. Clint's in here as well, guys. We're starting in 30 seconds. G'day, Cherie. Let me know, Cherie, if the podcast that I tagged you in yesterday helped. I'd really like to know that, actually. Loz, what's going on, mate? Good morning. Coming to the end of the 28-day challenge, Loz. I hope you're well. Hello, Claire. Good evening. Claire, I was checking your transformation photos yesterday. Actually, Coach Mike has just joined the podcast. Claire, your back shots are absolutely ridiculous. To be honest, that's the first time I've seen them like that, and it's next level. Hello, Xanth. How are you, mate? And of course, Coach Mike is in here as well. Now, if you come in later on and watch this podcast, make sure you press #replay. And I think we are ready to rock and roll on another episode of Rise. Let's go. So throughout this series of these Rise podcasts, guys, we've been exploring a whole lot of different ideas. Some of them would have really hit for you. Others may have kind of passed you over. And so for this reason, at the completion of this series, I'm going to suggest that you go back and listen to these episodes again whilst either driving or chilling. When it comes to our mindset and coaching around mindset, there's a hell of a lot of overlap between a lot of these ideas. Where one thing starts and the next one ends is not often that clear. But it's not actually that important. This is the way that I kind of I think in like a very visual person. And I think of mindset coaching a little bit like this. The mind is like a mixed up Rubik's Cube, right? And although the cube is a very simple object, each time we twist it and change it, we see another perspective. And so there's another concept to understand, which is both similar and different to the last concept. And the more time that we hold this cube in our hand and start looking at it from different angles, the more we get to become familiar with our minds. Does that make sense? Or I've got a simpler analogy, and I love this analogy, okay? This explains why it takes time to understand and change our mindset. I want you to imagine your mind is like a block of wood, okay? And each of these ideas that we've discussed, plus ones that we haven't yet discussed, is like a long timber nail. In order for that concept to become lodged in your mind, it's going to need to be hammered multiple times for that concept to really stick. Does that make sense? So your mind is like the block of wood. Each of these mindset concepts is like a timber nail, and we're going to need to continually hammer and hammer and hammer them in. And so just listening to this type of stuff once doesn't work. You've got to get fully immersive. This is why guys like Tez and Claire and Nick Friend are here every day getting this knowledge. This is why we did a standalone episode on repetition. Each strike of that nail buries the idea further into your mind. And if you can spend the rest of your days embedding more and more nails, this is the blueprint for success. Does this make sense? The mother of all learning is repetition. Okay, so guys, with that aside, let's get stuck into what I want to talk about today. This episode, we want to go big, and I want to hit on a topic that we cover off in our mastermind. I call this the Big A. This book, this concept I had no understanding of really until I personally read the book, The Power of Now. The book drew me to the fact that we are most often both the cause of and the solution to our own problems. We're the cause and that we're also the solution. If you feel like you're a highly reactive person, then this episode will go away to showing you perhaps an alternative path. And what we're talking about here is awareness. Awareness for me, the big A, everything starts here. But what does awareness actually mean? Awareness is the state of being conscious that an event is happening or that it exists, okay? Like, what's the opposite of awareness? The opposite would be maybe naivety, which means lack of worldly knowledge, or ignorance, which means lack of competence, lack of knowledge, so lack of worldly experience and lack of knowledge. Reactivity, which so many of us face, and I want you to give me a silent hand up if you're reactive as hell. This occurs mostly because we lack awareness and we let our monkey mind, the ego, take over. When we're reacting to everything that's happening in our life, what does that do? That creates a victim mindset, which disempowers us. The key to reclaiming your life is to become more aware. And when you become more aware, guess what happens? And some of you will already notice this happening because of your transformation. You infect those that are closest to you, and they become more aware. And then you change your entire family. So let's talk about your awareness journey. You, personally, your awareness journey. To put it simply, no one changed anything that they first didn't become aware that they needed to change. I want you to think back to a time before you started in Better Body Academy. There would have been a time when you were completely unaware of how your health was holding you back. Before you went into the denial period for a few weeks or years, there would have been a period that you just didn't consciously recognize you're unhealthy. You were blissfully unaware. Does that make sense? Can you remember that period of time? This state reminds me of time I spent working in a dementia ward. And it was during my university years. And I had this old lady come up to me that was totally convinced that I was her son coming to visit her for Christmas. In this state, there's no conscious awareness of what's going on. For most of us, there was a moment when you become clearly aware of your struggles around health. Maybe you tried to suit up for a wedding and you couldn't get your pants on. Maybe you went to the doctor for a routine check and he told you you've got high blood pressure and you need to get on medication. Maybe someone very close to you died. Maybe your partner left you. These events are often the catalyst for you becoming what's called problem aware. This is a type of self-awareness. Often it is that your friends and family have been telling you that you have this problem for a long period of time. But because you're ignorant and naive, the penny just hasn't dropped with you yet. So you need to get slammed and experience it in your own world for you to actually realize it. Does anyone kind of resonate with that idea? Becoming problem aware is the first step. It's an important step. But just because you become problem aware, that doesn't mean that you're ready to start solving the problem. You've just become aware of the problem. Most people will resist change at all costs until the pain, this is called procrastination, by the way, until the pain of changing exceeds the difficulty of the change. I'll say that again. Most people will procrastinate, and that's part of the course. And the reason is because the pain of changing doesn't yet exceed the difficulty of the change. So stop now and have a think about all the things that you'd like to change. Could it be true that the reason you haven't yet changed is because the pain of not changing is not yet severe enough? Is that possible? The reason many of you, and I'm going to say this straight to you guys in the 28-day challenge, the reason many of you will not join our main program is for you, losing a couple of kilos is just enough to cool things down for another 3 to 6 months. That's all. You've become problem aware, but the fear of taking the next step is too much because the pain is not yet enough against the work that needs to be done to fix it. The truth is what you've done is you'll push the pain bubble below the surface, but eventually it'll rise up again. And eventually the pain will start to become unbearable. People start on the next step of their journey when that pain starts to become real. And then a person starts to consider all the different options that they have to solve the problem. They start to think about the costs, the likelihood of success, the time delay, and the perceived effort that it's going to take to solve their issue. So have you had that journey in your mind? Like, can you feel that having happened? The thing is, guys, awareness is not this like binary thing where you're either aware or you're not. That doesn't work like that. I think awareness has both a short-term and a long-term component. Short-term awareness is your ability to be present, okay, in this conversation, in a podcast, when you're learning, or your tendency to lose focus and get lost in thought and become reactive. Long-term awareness is your ability to understand why you do the things you do and to be able to solve your own problems. Does that make sense? Think of awareness like this. I think of it like a torch, okay? Another analogy. Imagine you're staying over at your friend's house and you guys went out for a night out and you crashed at his or her house and you needed a pee in the middle of the night. Your phone's run out of battery. So you're trying to navigate your way to the toilet and it's in the pitch black and you're tripping over your shoes, the coffee table, the dogs. This is the way most of us live our life. Tripping over the same shit over and over and over again because we're walking in the dark without any awareness. Does this make sense? Now imagine you went to bed, you put your phone on charge, now you've got the torchlight to be able to navigate. All of a sudden you can see the things that you're tripping over. This is what it's like to become more aware. But your torchlight is only as good as your habit of charging it. So if you want awareness, you need to practice charging it up all the time. There's 2 types of awareness that I can see, and this is how to get better. Now, obviously, it's beyond the scope of this short podcast to be able to deal with what is a massive mastermind topic. But I think of awareness like this, okay? There's 2 overlapping circles, and in the middle here of that overlap is where we get a better life, okay? The 2 overlapping circles are this, and this is the important part of the podcast, guys, so please use your awareness to listen up. There is inner or personal awareness. This is the awareness of self. Then there is outer awareness, external awareness. This is the awareness of things. And it's the overlap between these 2 things where your life starts to get better. So, becoming more inner aware means becoming more aware of yourself. What the hell does that mean? It means getting to understand yourself better. Your habits, your self-sabotage, your thoughts, your level of self-love, the stories you tell yourself. In the Mastermind program, we talk about this concept of becoming the watcher. This is the idea that I want you to look at me and imagine I'm here giving this podcast, but I can equally leave my body and watch myself giving this podcast. This is becoming the watcher. Your ability to watch yourself doing your life. This is like, when I first thought about this topic and heard about this topic in The Power of Now, it changed everything for me because I was able to watch how I react to things. I was able to watch how I talk to myself. I was able to watch how I engage with other people. Observing yourself takes awareness, right? And it takes using those higher faculties that animals don't have. We as humans have, but mostly don't use. When you're able to observe yourself, you're able to see why you keep tripping yourself up. And then you're able to problem solve instead of reacting. Are you familiar with this idea of just being caught in this habit loop all the time? Why do I just keep fucking doing the same thing to myself over and over and over again? Because you're trapped in a habit loop. If you're able to pull yourself out and become the watcher and just observe yourself doing what you do, often just being able to observe yourself is enough to break the pattern. Because the moment you become the watcher, you become conscious, you become aware. So you're no longer operating by habit, you're operating by thinking. This is the reason why things like meditation, journaling will help you to become more aware. Because the goal of those practices is for you to stop and observe yourself and not judge. You can identify your patterns and start to override them. When you start to observe yourself, you start to come from a place of compassion and self-love, making you less likely to sabotage. So does this make sense, guys? Do we understand? Let me know in the comments if we understand internal awareness or awareness of self. Okay? This is the ability to observe. Now, the other part that I want to finish off this with is external awareness or outer awareness. I call this colloquially awareness of things or awareness of tools. Okay? I've committed myself to never be without a coach for a long period again. Why? Because the issue most people face is that they don't know what they don't know. And I'm a fitness coach, but I'm not an exception. I know a lot about fitness and I know a lot about mindsets, but there's a lot of stuff that I don't know about. There are world concepts that I just don't know about that would improve my life, make it easier, make it better. But until I become aware of my naivety, my ignorance, which is inner awareness, awareness of self, I cannot become outer aware of the solutions to fix it. So when you become inner aware of your problems and your patterns, and then you become outer aware through study and implementing that knowledge, through coaching and implementing those skills and those mindsets, you can not only diagnose the problem, but get the tools to solve the problem. Think about it. The thing that separates you and I from getting to where we want to go is developing the mindset and the skill set to solve our problems. That's it. If you've got a finance problem, that's because you've got a number of problems, an earning problem, a budgeting problem, a spending problem, an investment problem, to which there are coaching programs which teach tools to solve those problems. If you've got a fitness problem, a weight problem, that's because you've got a bunch of accessory problems to which there is coaching to be able to solve those problems. I heard the phrase once, greater awareness without action is useless. So becoming more aware of it and not actually solving it is useless. Actually, it just creates more pain because now you're aware of your problem. So actually, maybe it's actually just better to just be dumb. You know, like people that are just like docile and they just seem so happy because they haven't become problem aware. Maybe that's a better life. I don't think so, but that's an option. In other words, implementation without action is just noise. So you don't try to get overwhelmed and you don't try to do it all at once, but you watch less TV and listen to more dedicated podcasts and books and YouTube videos which help you solve the problems that you become aware that you have. Does this make sense? Guys, I'm going to leave it there because this is like, I could literally go super freaking deep with this and it would get too complicated. But the reality is, this is why we have a mastermind program. It's impossible for us to cover all of the concepts of mindness here in 20 days. But this awareness, I think for me, is all encompassing because it doesn't pertain to one topic. It speaks to our entire life. What separates us from where we want to go is developing the mindset and the skill set so that once we've identified our problems, we can solve our problems. That gets us across the gap. And then we get across the gap and we realize, if I can do that, I can do the next thing. And now we're back on this side of the gap, requiring a new mindset, a new skill set to get across the gap. And then there's another challenge. And this is why when you get to your goal of weight loss, guess what? You'll be happy for about 5 minutes. You'll be happy for about 5 minutes because you'll realize that, oh, actually, the real joy that I got from this, the real growth that I got from this was in the journey. Guys, I'm going to love you and leave you there. On that note, I haven't run a mastermind program for a long period of time, and I'm feeling energetically we might be at the readiness to potentially do another version of this. So if it's something that you would like to get involved with, shoot us a message via the Success team, and if the demand is there, we'll consider running one in the course of the next couple of weeks. I'm going to shut this podcast down with baby crying in the background. I'll see you guys.